Oh, here we
I
go.
don't know if you've had much time to ponder the questions, but it's,
I have answered all of them on my phone, and I am pondered and pondered.
all right. Well, let's start with your grandparents. Tell me about Barry and Irene Broderick.
Well, Fairy and Irene, they were just the cutest couple. They were definitely in love. They were a fabulous team from my perspective. They were both very, very hard workers. Grandpa worked, on the farm. I guess you would call it a farm because he had animals, cows, chickens, pigs, sheep, and worked really hard. Of course, he worked at the coal mine earlier. I don't know if I really knew him much when he worked at the coal mine. But anyway, they both passed on their values for working really hard to take care of your family and for what you get, and to love your family, and to always remember the Lord and to give thanks. And those were the things that they passed on for me. And they both had a great sense of humor, which is so important in life. Grandma especially loved telling jokes. She would sit there on her stool, and I don't know if you ever saw her little stool, but she had a stool that Uncle Glenn made for her with 4 wheels on it. And because one leg was a lot shorter than the other one, and so she had a hard time getting around. So she used crutches, wheelchair, but usually she was on her little stool that wheeled around. And she would just zip back and forth in that kitchen, and she could, whip up a meal in no time, telling jokes the whole while and laughing and being silly and making her grandkids just feel like they were special. She was just amazing. And she was very famous for her white cake. And she would make this 7-minute frosting that we all just loved it. And when it was mealtime, she would put everything on the table, that they had, to make sure everybody had, found something that they liked to eat. So she was pretty amazing. And she never let her situation of not being able to walk dampen her spirit. She was always just a joy to be around. And whenever we would leave and say goodbye, they both would stand at the porch, and wave and wave and wave and wave until you couldn't see them any longer. It was just so sweet. And we just loved visiting them.
Let's talk a little bit about your dad growing up. Did he talk to you much about that, about the Depression and the time, what it was like?
I think I told you that we recorded him in several different sessions about his memories and stuff like that. He didn't say much about the Depression that I recall. So here's one paragraph about the Depression. That was something. When that came through, we had everything we needed to eat. Our clothes are ragged, but we didn't worry about the clothes. Everybody else's clothes are ragged too, except the cattle growers. The ones that raise cattle, they were able to buy something, and the miners were able to buy things because they got paid. But most of them just didn't get paid much. So we're all in the same boat. Anyway, he talked about his parents saved $5, and they hired somebody to come and help them on the farm, and the $5 ended up missing, and Grandma cried, and they didn't know where the money went. And that's what he remembers about the Depression.
The thing that stuck with me, so they were renting or whatever, a house in town. The water bill was $1 a month. They couldn't afford the dollar.
I know, I was reading that last night. I'm going, wow.
Why don't we go ahead and jump to when your parents were dating? What was it about their relationship that impresses you?
Mom was very quick I think they both were quick to forgive each other. I know my dad sometimes was a little impatient and short, and every once in a while with my mom, more so with the kids, but every once in a while with my mom. And I never saw her retaliate or say anything unkind. And she was always so quick to let it go, which is such a great example for us in our marriages, just so quick to let it go. And she didn't ever seem to take offense, whether it was, from him or anybody else. And you could tell that they loved each other, and as they got older, my dad mellowed, and their relationship became more tender and sweet and connected. And I think one thing that really helped their relationship is the music that they shared, because they shared so often, whether it be rest homes or care centers or ward activities. And I think that really created a connection between them of something that they both loved. I would love to do what they did and take music. This has been an idea of mine, but I don't have the same get out there and sing my heart out in heaven. And that's what I'm going to do. But to share the way that they did with so many people and brighten their day and lift their spirits with, beautiful music and memorable music and some of the favorite songs of the times, from the people that they were singing to, the oldies, not only helped all those people, but I think it really healed anything that needed to be healed in their relationship, as they had to be in harmony and in tune with each other to sing together and to unite their musical instruments. And I don't know. I know they had so many hard times, but I think that was one of the keys. And a lot of couples don't have something that brings them together, that they do together, that they share together, and that they have to harmonize together, So that was a real blessing for them.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's a great point. Kind of going along with that, I didn't realize till I was reading through Grandma's history that not only did they love dancing together when they were at Cedar City, but for decades, they loved that as well.
Do you remember Mom's 80th birthday down in St. George? And we had a little dance. I have the most beautiful picture of her in her turquoise dress and Dad in his suit. And she was 80, he was like 79, and they danced. They just looked so happy. And yes, they do. They do love synchronizing on the dance floor, which you're right. And they love square dancing. Dave and I square danced several years ago with an older couple that we were home teachers to and still are. And that square dancing and line dancing, and they not only synchronized in musical ways, but in their minds and in their hearts. And it was over a period of years, like it is with pretty much all of us. It takes time, for that love to sweeten and become really special.
I mean, that's something I've thought a lot about, the way that Grandma was. So, never saying anything bad about anybody. My mom's similar.
Yes, she is.
And so I had the benefit of that, growing up. But, you could easily make the counter argument in a relationship that you need to talk about things, right? And so there's this interesting balance of what and how do you talk about things and what do you let go, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. John Lund, he talks a lot about that. He is incredible.
So you were pretty young in Hurricane, I guess, right?
Yeah, I lived there till I was 8. I'll talk about my dad a little bit at that time. It was so fun when he would go, I think it was when he was working in Las Vegas, and he would, go for like a few days, and then he'd come back, and he would always bring little trinkets. I don't know where he got his little trinkets, but I guess Vegas probably had a lot of that kind of stuff. And he'd let us pick one trinket from his box. That was so exciting for us. I remember going down there and visiting once or more, I'm not sure, and cutting my foot. But I remember the shop. In fact, I visited the shop just a couple months ago and talked to the people that lived there and got to see inside of the shoe shop. But he was a hard worker. I get so emotional when I think about how hard he worked, because he must have had 22 different vocations, maybe more by the time he, passed away. But he tried everything to make sure there was food on the table for his 10 children. And he just never quit, never gave up, never stopped taking serious his obligation to provide for his family. He didn't believe in somebody else taking care of us. He felt responsible. He just so impresses me that he was able to just keep on keeping on and working hard. He did so many things, and he was so creative. If he could have sold all the things that he did with his creativity, he could have made a living with all of the amazing things that he did with his creativity, because it was endless what he could create.
remember when they were in Henryville, like actually, and also when they were American Fork, he was always working on something interesting, like, the stained glass. I always found that super fascinating. All right, very good. Now tell me about the years in Orem then.
Orem was great. I loved Orem. I thought it was the perfect town in the world. Of course, when we moved there in December of 1961, and I'm sure, as you know, and this is my perception of the story, that my dad's cousin DeRay offered him a job pouring cement, and that winter was so cold. This is my memory. It was so cold that you couldn't do cement because the ground was so frozen, and plus he got really sick that winter, so he wasn't able to do work, get an income. So we had just gotten there, and he had no work. If I'm not mistaken, the church helped us with food and with Christmas gifts, and I don't know what else. I don't know if clothes were involved. And that's the only time that I know of that my dad relied on the church, for help for his family. I'll just tell you really quick. I was 8 years old. My birthday was in July, so I'd been baptized. We moved to Orem. It was December, bitter cold outside, snow. I was standing in the kitchen washing dishes on Christmas Eve. So December 24th, it was about maybe 8 o'clock at night. The door opened. Santa came in, walking in with boxes of presents. And I thought I was just going to die and go to heaven because there was Santa in my house. And it's just one of my favorite memories. And then he left, and I went and looked out the window, and there was a white van. He was driving off in a white van. But the next morning, the best presents under the tree, the only ones that I remember, are what Dad made. He'd made little rocking chairs for our dolls and little wooden cradles for our dolls. And I don't know if that was the year that he made little treasure boxes, but he made a little treasure box, at least for all the girls. I don't know if he made them for the boys, probably. And they were so beautiful. And Betty still has hers. She showed it to me. And they had sparkly paint on them, and they were just so beautiful. And he always did things to make our childhood special. And that's just one of my favorite memories.
Very good. And then how did you feel about moving to Michigan?
Michigan, I was absolutely determined not to go because I had made a few friends, and being an introvert, I didn't have very many friends. And so that's maybe one reason it was hard for me to leave, not knowing if I would make any friends, in Michigan. When you tell your dad that you're not going to do something, it never goes over. And of course, he wasn't going to have the family split up, and I was 14. So of course I went to Michigan, and it turned out I believe to be, a great growing experience for all of us, and to, have a different culture, experience a different, almost, way of life. Not really, but it was different than Utah. And we had early morning seminary. And so it was a really, really valuable experience for us. And Dad, of course, was gone a lot when he started traveling for the 10M builders, doing church houses in various states. But Mom was always so supportive of him. We never heard grumbling or complaining. He was the breadwinner. He worked hard. She supported him. And I think that's one of the things that helped him have the motivation to never give up and never quit, is because he saw how much my mom appreciated and never complained about, not having more. She made do with what they had, what he was able to provide for them. And she was amazing. She was a miracle worker, with what they had and what she had to work with. And I think that helped him be motivated to keep working hard to provide, because, it can be very discouraging and frustrating during those very difficult years, which went on for a long time. So no, it was a great experience, but it was great to move back too. I think we're all grateful to move back and come back for Joyce's wedding. So that was the motivation to move back, or one of the motivations.
So you were about 16 when you moved back then?
Yeah.
16?
Yeah.
You finished high school there in Orem then?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And
Tigers.
And then what did you do after that?
Then I got a job at, well, I worked with Squire and DeBry in, doing accounting. Well, then I went to Provo Technical College, kind of like my older siblings did, and took a 1-year secretarial course. And during high school in Michigan and in Orem, must have been when we came back from Michigan, I worked for my dad, and he paid me $1 an hour. And I worked in his office, just a little bit every day or every week. I don't remember how often. So I worked in the office, taking phone calls and doing his book work. And of course, Mom, did a lot of book work for him. And I'm sure she helped teach me, what to do. When he would be working on the houses, he would need some cleanup done. So sometimes I would go help do the cleanup of, all the mess and kind of get the floors all cleaned up. And he was always, really great to work for. So I enjoyed that. And then in college, I took the secretarial course, and then I moved away from home with Janine. And Dad had gotten a little house there on Main Street in Orem as a trade-in, and he sold it to Janine and I for $9,000, which is incredible. And we made payments because we both, were working. He was a great deal maker. He loved wheeling and dealing, as you know. I can tell you one experience I had with my dad when I was little.
Okay.
That shaped my life quite a bit, I think.
Okay.
I was probably 4 or 5, and some of my siblings had gone across the street because I think it was Beverly had a horse over there in front of the library, which is just across the street from us. And I wanted to go see the horse. And so I proceeded to go across the street all by myself, which was not allowed at my age. And my dad caught me in the middle of the street. How he saw me and caught me that fast, I do not know. He gave me my one and only spanking. And I cried. I was humiliated somehow at that age. I learned an important lesson that day. And I never wanted to disappoint my father again. And so as a sad result, I kind of avoided him so that I wouldn't get any more spankings. Of course, I don't think I ever did anything to deserve a spanking. I tried to just lay low and let my brothers, take on the spankings. I think my sisters maybe did that too, because I don't ever remember my sisters getting a spanking. And then another experience with my dad. Where'd it go? It'll come back.
All right. Tell me about, you mentioned this a little bit, and if that other story comes back, let me know.
Okay.
Tell me about your dad's love for music.
Yeah, it was deep. He and Mom both. I remember reading something in his life story, and you probably read it too, how when he was young, he loved to sing. And I guess Eliza played the piano, and she would like Dad to come and sing, while she played the piano. And so in both of their homes, I think music was really important, especially in my mom's home. But apparently it was important somehow it was instilled in my dad. And I don't know where he learned to play the guitar, but he had several.
Do you have any songs that make you think of your dad?
I do have some favorites. Love at Home was one of their favorites, and we sang that a lot. And Let the Rest of the World Go By. My sisters and I, we sing that, or used to sing that at all of our sisters' retreats. I don't know if we sing that at the last one. They would sing that. It's a love song. They sing a lot of love songs, like You Are My Sunshine, I Love You Truly, Let Me Call You Sweetheart, A Bicycle Built for Two, Somewhere My Love, Paper Roses, By the Light of the Silvery Moon, My Wild Irish Rose, When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. Almost all of my favorites that they sing, I realize, are love songs. And they would look at each other oftentimes when they were singing these songs.
Very nice.
And did anybody tell you that he used to perform in plays and road shows. I don't remember the name of the play, but I'm sure all my sisters do. He would sing "How Are Things in Glockamora." Do you remember that
Oh,
song?
yeah, that's Finian's Rainbow.
Yes, Phineas Rainbow. I think he had one of the lead roles, maybe.
Funny about that to me is how I know that song and I'll sing it randomly, you know. And I think the reason I know it is Grandpa liked it. So that's one of the videos he had that we borrowed. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yes, absolutely loved collecting videos and recording movies and watching them and over again, watching them and sharing them with the grandkids. And yeah, he loved his movies. That was one of his favorite hobbies after, later on. But, he used to take mom out for dates sometimes. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
You did not know that?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at it, it just kind of surprises me. I don't know if they did it all through their marriage or if I just became aware of it like when I was a teenager or something. But I remember he loved to take mom to the movies. That was probably his favorite date, to take mom to the movies. And I think they sometimes stopped for ice cream, or maybe they would stop and buy a thing of ice cream. But boy, if he could get ice cream on sale for 29 cents, for a half gallon, he was in heaven. And I'm telling you, it used to sell for 29 cents for a half gallon thing. And he gave us all, I think all of us, a love for ice cream and candy. but he and mom would go on date nights. And I think that was also very instrumental in helping their relationship, to be sweet.
How about this one? What attributes of your father would you most like to emulate or see instilled in your grandchildren?
As I mentioned earlier, he never gave up and he never quit, even when things got extremely grim for him to be able to pay the bills and to feed our large family. He was never lazy, but they did take time to socialize with other couples, to play games. He loved to make special treats to share with others. And when he got older, he loved sharing the gospel with anyone. They would make some yummy treats and hold cottage meetings on their mission, especially, but at home, you could probably call it a cottage meeting, and show short church videos. He had a lot of courage in sharing the gospel, and I really admire that. He also was very talented musically, was not afraid to share his musical talents. And I really admired the fact that he and mom spent years of their lives sharing their music with elderly people. And also they played for dances. They played Tennessee Waltz, the Beer Barrel Polka, Virginia Reel, Turkey in the Straw, those kinds of things. And his great sense of humor, I think, is really important. I was kind of born serious. And so you would think that I would have got more of my dad's sense of humor, but he gave it to some of the others like Betty and Levon. And he loved to bring a smile and a laugh to everyone's day. And that's one of the things I admire most, is that he a lot of times would go out of his way to do something special for people, and was always very generous with his talents, but mostly that he was a hard worker, that he valued time with his family, and that he had strong faith in the Lord, was very courageous in sharing the gospel, which for me has been hard, but I've learned to, if we invite, we're doing our job, for other people to learn about the gospel and to learn about God's love for them, and the importance of letting God guide our lives, and let the Savior's atonement influence our day-to-day lives. So he was a great example of those to me. I don't think he ever turned down a calling. And I think he was very diligent in ministering. And I think one of the ways that he ministered was they would have friends come over and have like a game night, and they would make, their special different colors and flavors of fudge, or different flavors of popcorn, different flavors of taffy. They love to make treats. And I've read, and I believe that playing games is, like, as a family, is one of the best ways that you can help your children strengthen their self-worth and their feeling of belonging and their self-identity, as a family, in a family setting. That's what I've read, and that's what I feel. And so I think he did that well, as a dad, because we always had a lot of fun as a family. But also as a neighbor, friend, home teacher, he would have couples or families come over and we'd play games. And I think that helped strengthen their families, and strengthen each other as members, in the gospel. And so I think that he was an example to a lot of people in how open he was with his testimony. I'm sure you've heard him say this: the gospel is so true, I can't believe it. He's just a funny guy. I don't know if you remember the story about when somebody took his sawhorses at work. He would make another one and it kept happening, and he'd make another one. And anyway, so finally he made a whole bunch and he gave everybody sawhorses. At least that's how I remember the story. Okay.
If you could see your dad on his 100th birthday, what would you say?
Oh, I forgot to think about that question. Well, I would give him the biggest hug, because I feel so badly that I didn't have more of a relationship with him when I was a teenager, when I was a child, because of the spanking. I kind of, it's just kind of careful around him, and he gave us some great advice that really affected my marriage with Dave and raising his kids as their stepmom, and that affected my ability to let go of worries and concerns and things that don't matter, or assumptions, misunderstandings. And he just really helped me feel like I was where I needed to be, doing what I needed to do with the people that needed me. And it's just changed my life, to feel that way. And so I would just hug him and thank him for all the things that he did do. All of us have weaknesses. Not a one of us that doesn't. And if other people focus on those weaknesses, sometimes it can cause us to flounder, to doubt ourselves, and to not be who we were created to be. But if other people that are important in our lives focus on our strengths and what's good about us, then usually we will flourish, and we will work to strengthen those strengths and to develop the talents that God gave us. I think Dad tried to do that for us as children. And I think that that's one thing that I love about both of my parents, is that they tried to strengthen other people and help other people be their best. And so I would just thank him for all the ways that he worked to provide for us and take care of us, and never quit, because it would be so hard with 10 children. Just can't even imagine.
All right. Well, do you want to give me the tribute then?
I do. Let me grab my Kleenex, okay?
Okay.
I don't remember what year I wrote this, but it was probably in 2008 when we did his life story, or maybe a little bit before that, because we asked for all of the kids to share their thoughts about Dad. So this is my tribute to Dad. Dad could do just about anything. Just seemed there was nothing he couldn't fix, from leaky pipe to a broken toy to a worn out TV. Also, he could create just about anything, and when there was a need, he created many games and beautiful toys for us kids when we were young. He created lovely tables, clocks, cedar chests, chests of drawers, picture frames, jewelry. The list goes on forever. He used his creativity to create unique gifts and practical items for others. He participated in various careers. The last count of how many careers he had was 22. My siblings and I were counting them. He didn't seem to be afraid to try anything if it would provide for his family. He would not give up. Stop and think about it. Where have you seen greater courage than to welcome 10 children into his family, he being the sole financial provider, so that mom could nurture their children? Through thick and thin, famine and not famine, he never lost sight of his responsibility to care for us. He never lost his desire to provide for all of our needs, including both physical and spiritual needs. That was the story I was going to tell you. When I was 5, I slipped in the shower and I broke my right collarbone, and my arm was in a sling, and I was not going to go to church because I was embarrassed. And my arm had to be under my dress in the sling. But Dad wasn't having it. That was not enough reason to not go to church. And so I went to church. And what I remember from that is that there are very few reasons not to go to church. That's where we should be. That's where God wants us to be. And when you start slipping going to church, it gets easier and easier to slip going to church. And then you do not have that reinforcement every week spiritually to keep you growing and learning and becoming who God wants us to be. So that was a powerful lesson in my life from my dad. Along with the other needs, he provided fun times, taking the boys hunting, keeping old cars and inner tubes for our entertainment. You've probably heard stories about the old cars and tubes, family camping trips, and many a fishing trip. And those were some of our favorite memories when he had to go out of town. He loved to bring home little treats and trinkets for each of us. Of course, his jokes and sense of humor offered many a laugh. He could laugh through just about any trial, just like his mother. I personally was kind of afraid of Dad. Afraid, I guess, that I might get a spanking like my brothers often did. So very unfortunately, I kept my distance from Dad after my first spanking from him. But as an adult, I came to appreciate him and love to be around him and enjoyed his sense of humor. I wish I had taken the opportunity to get to know him much earlier in my life. Some things I admire most about him are his willingness to share his talents to make others happy and sharing his love for the gospel wherever he was. He loved learning new things and developing new talents. I got my love for ice cream and candy from Dad. So many flavors of homemade ice cream and candies were whipped up in our kitchen, and he certainly loved to share them. He was a very generous man. He was the patriarch in our home, always an example of church attendance, always able to give a sick child a blessing. Dad was not a spitting image of perfection, like his wife was, but his weaknesses were so minor next to his strengths and contributions for what he gave us and helped provide can't be measured. Of all his hobbies and occupations, his most important was that he was a fisher of men, quotes. Sharing his convictions of the church and his love for the gospel was certainly something he enjoyed doing, whether on the street, in church, in the mission field, or at the temple. His testimony has been a strength to many. Thank you, Dad, for loving and caring for me through such difficult times and for your hand in shaping who I am today. Love you, Dad. That's what I would tell him.
Thank you for that. That was very lovely. And I appreciate you putting together the life history and having the foresight to do that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share today. And I'm just grateful that mom asked us to put together, hers and Dad's. It's a great opportunity. Otherwise, how would we know so much about them?